Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. And Steve Mnuchin, the US Treasury Secretary, said some things that are a little concerning at the globalist fun camp we call Davos. So, as he said, and this is really, it's something that you kind of expect from a Treasury Secretary who they say is going to confront the globalists, but as a matter of fact is a globalist himself. He said this, and I quote, "There are obvious benefits from a weaker dollar." And of course, the market reaction was swift following these comments, and the dollar fell to a 3-year low against the euro and sank against the Japanese yen. Now, of course, short term, there are benefits to a manipulated, suppressed, devalued dollar. There's no doubt about it. But long term, obviously, we know you reap what you sow. You will see a massive crash on an epic scale, and we are seeing the beginning of that happening right now. And any excuse for them, they've said the same thing about China. They need to stop their currency devaluation. We need to stop their currency devaluation because it's an unfair advantage. Well, yeah, maybe in the short term, but we will see what will happen in the near future as the U.S. world reserve currency, which is being swapped out of en masse, comes crashing down. John?
Well, I would say short term too, heroin can feel good as well. So it's just a matter of how you want to put it forward. Now, talking about this devaluation, I want to give you guys an example from the real life when it comes to devaluing currency and what happened when the auto industry, the big heads moved to Korea because Korea was devaluing their currency severely. So you got suddenly you had Kia and Hyundai coming out of Korea. And very cheap as well compared to the Nissan, the Mitsubishi, and Toyotas. Yeah. So that's where you saw the short-term benefits. Now, of course, they are starting to slowly diminish their sales again. They're still quite cheap, but Japan has really been fighting them. Actually, nobody's talking about this, how Japan has severely devalued their currency over the last 10 years now. The yen went from, super high up to it just crashed against the US dollar, really. And there was a little bit of talk about it a couple of years ago, but now it's nobody talking about it. And now, of course, they want to devalue their dollar against everybody else again. It's just everybody's devaluing their currency against everybody else, so it doesn't look like it's that bad, but what's happening is that short-term gain, as you said, for the economy. Meanwhile, what's going to happen when you devalue your currency, you're going to see inflation happening for the populace as well. So that's the other bad side of it that they saw in Japan, is that you suddenly started to have heavy inflation in the country. Things started to become a lot more expensive, or it took a lot more currency to buy the things that they wanted. There's a huge issue with devaluing your currency. It might have that little short-term good effect for the competition of the industries in that country, but after a little while, suddenly inflation creeps up quite high, and then they got to increase wages in order for people to survive.
And then businesses have to lay people off, and then you just lose more production, which means more layoffs, and then steeper price climbs and everything. And actually, Ray Dalio recently just said on this subject that, as Zero Hedge says, having mocked those who are not balls deep invested in stocks earlier this week from Davos, and I quote, "Investors holding cash are going to feel pretty stupid." Billionaire hedge fund manager Ray Dalio has taken aim at US Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin in his latest letter. And of course, he's gone pretty deep into this in the past, and he goes on to say it is a hidden tax on people who are holding the dollar denominated assets and a benefit to those who have the dollar denominated liabilities. And that's what he says, having a weak currency means the most. And of course, as we've gone into so many times before, all fiat currencies eventually revert to their intrinsic value of zero. They always have, they always will. And this goes back to 1024 AD in China. Nothing's going to change this time around. People have to understand this. People have to be self-sustainable. People have to be financially responsible, because that's what it all comes down to. It's a hallmark of freedom itself. And if we continue over and over and over again to trust the Federal Reserve, whether it's Ben Bernanke, Alan Greenspan, Janet Yellen, or Powell, who's coming in the next week or so, you will continue to win the same stupid prizes. That's what happens when you play stupid games. So continuing to manipulate the monetary system instead of having a competing currency free market system where people, individuals decide, business leaders decide, capitalism decides based on the demand of your dollar and what dollar you trade, fair and square, voluntary transactions between free individuals. As long as we try and continue to repeat the same old crimes of the cartels of the past, the globalist cartels of the past with the fiat system, we will win the same old stupid prizes. So when are people going to learn that, okay, it doesn't matter the president, it doesn't matter the prime minister, it doesn't matter whoever is in charge of the government or whatever you want to call it, it's always going to end the same way. It's a racket, it's a mob, it's a cartel that depends on the debt and the subservience of the populace, because a populace in debt is a populace in servitude. And if they shove you down that bottomless pit of debt, you are forced to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, which puts you in perfect servitude. John?
Well, I think we're ready for Bernie Sanders for the research. No, just joking. This whole comment about liabilities, it benefits. Of course it does. When the dollar devalues, your liabilities becomes less expensive to pay back. But that's what the Keynesians believe about the US debt as well, that they can continue to rack up mass amounts of debt and then continue to devalue the dollar and then pay back in lesser, valuable dollars. So you're just seeing a constant, increase in the US dollar here. And if you take a look from, this is numbers from Shadow Stats. Thankfully, we have Shadow Stats where they actually show, for example, the M3 that they've gotten rid of in the United States, because it shows how big the money supply is. And the current money, M3 money supply is at about 18 trillion US dollars. And of course, that doesn't account for a lot of the US dollars that is outside of the country. And if you go to this one chart here, which shows the positives and negatives in sell-offs or buy-ups of U.S. bonds, you can see that it's been in negative territory of a sell-off of bonds lately. So people are starting to flood out of the world reserve currency, which is losing. Everybody's starting to lose faith in it, just like they recently done in Venezuela. And we see where Venezuela is currently. It's coming to roost in the United States as well. When that money is starting to slush and fly, come back like a tsunami back from the east, it's gonna just literally flood the whole country with staggering amounts of money. And also this tax cut for the corporations is also going to bring back a lot of cash into the economy. Now it might just go straight into their stocks, of course, with share buybacks and all this, but you're going to see more inflation. And there's even the mainstream is talking about that. We're seeing a race of inflation in the United States coming. I think we're going to see a lot of it coming, and I think Jerome Powell is going to have some fun times as Janet Yellen, gets out in the free together with all of her predecessors of, being able to sit there and nothing really happened during her period. She just sat there, but
I think she's had a period in a long time.
Oh yeah. She continued to destroy the U.S. economy, Josh, and that's what not many people sees is these people that are heads of and chairs of these central banks around the world. They continue to destroy their currencies in their local countries.
Of course, and we've seen this time and time before. Of course, there's that theory that perhaps they are trying to throw quote-unquote small government under the bus by crashing the economy under Trump, to blame it on, hey, see, we need more government, etc. That's a theory that I've had for a while, since I think the day after Election Day in 2016, in November 2016. But with that said, at the same time, they're so desperately trying to maintain it. I mean, they are pushing interest rates up so that they can drop them out enough to be able to not go negative when the dollar comes crashing down inevitably. Yeah, exactly. And, it's crazy because from 2008 to 2012, they dropped it about 5.5%, the interest rates. And in this case, they'd have to drop it a lot more, and they don't have that room. They don't have that leeway. It is going to go into negative. And we know what happened in Sweden when it went negative. We saw the centrally planned cashless society that they're pushing through at Davos and through into the SDR, at the IMF, the special drawing rights. They are trying to map out this agenda as best they can.
Yeah, that's what's happening in Davos, Josh. It's a big globalist, happy, I don't know what to call it, but it's a cesspit of a whole bunch of these bankers and globalists that are trying to desperately push forward because they're losing with, the nationalist movement coming in, wanting, a little bit more sovereignty to their countries. So they're desperate to really fight back now and trying to implement this system. They're really hoping to use this next crisis to do it. But I don't know if the populace will be going with that.
It's very convenient that there's a metaphor there somewhere where they sit below this avalanche and just waiting for a little bit of a crack in the snow for it all come piling on top of them. There's something very convenient about that in Davos, and
just replace the mountain with a mountain of all the money that's in circulation,
all the debt,
and put the Fed underneath at the bottom of the mountain, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is, it's perfectly convenient. Yeah. But with that said, yeah, this is all going to come crashing down. It always was meant to come crashing down, and it just comes down to the individuals being able to save themselves with, self-sustainability, financial responsibility, know what you're getting into, don't believe what the government says, stay away from coercive collectives, just look after yourself, rule yourself, food, water, shelter, self-defense, so you're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block, of course, gold, silver, tangible assets, which have been doing pretty well with this decline lately, and then of course, decentralized cryptographic currencies, because this is so important. There's a big difference between the centrally planned cashless society and decentralized cryptocurrencies. Of course, do your own due diligence. There's the futures contract expiration coming on the 26th of January, which is probably the day we're getting this video up. So there's that to look forward to as well. We don't know what will happen, but there's a good chance that we'll see a big rise in Bitcoin. There has been a lot of manipulation, like any market, like we've seen in gold and silver as well. But once that banking system comes crashing down, we won't see any more of this manipulation. We will see a lot of beach balls jumping out of the water. So with that said, I guess we will wrap it up for today. Just remember, it doesn't matter the president in charge. The economy is run by global criminals, and this is just a globalist fun camp in Davos where they map out the demise of free human being, free humanity, and create more mountains and avalanches of debt to come.
Yeah, it's just one of the big globalist, fests that they have all around the world. They have, of course, the Bohemian Grove, they got the G30, they got the Bilderberg, all these, shadow government things.
And G20.
Yeah, it's just shadow government everywhere that is really ruling the things. Meanwhile, nobody has a say in those governments of the populace that, they represent.
So save yourself, folks. Rule yourselves. Freedom is intrinsic within. Exert that freedom, and just take care of yourself, spread the education, be the change you wish to see. So thanks for going into this with us, John. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here at WAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so overwhelmingly demonetized and censored by YouTube as the Anti-Defamation League comes in and flags all of our content as hate speech. You can also find me at Josh Sigurdson at steemit.com. That's steemit.com, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post via Steem, the cryptocurrency. You can also find our Bitcoin address in the description and the comments below, as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And don't forget to come on down to Anarchapulco in Acapulco, Mexico in February, one of the best events of the year, and you can save money on your tickets by typing in promo code WAM. That's WAM. We'll leave the link below for you, and until next time, don't forget to subscribe. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.